Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I don't think destruction always comes in the form of screaming matches or door-slamming exits. Sometimes it's quieter. A slow decay you barely notice until you're standing in the ruins, wondering when exactly the floor fell out from under you. That was us. Or more accurately, me, standing there, still trying to hold the house up while she quietly removed brick after brick. There wasn't a single breaking point. No grand betrayal, no smoking gun. It was a death by 1,000 tiny cuts, indifference, avoidance, silence. A shrug instead of a hug. A sigh where there used to be a smile. We used to be close. Not just in the romantic sense, but in the way people are when they share a rhythm. There were Sunday mornings with coffee and folded newspapers, inside jokes whispered under blankets, spontaneous drives to nowhere just to talk. Now, I barely recognized the woman sitting across from me. She still looked the same, on the surface, anyway. Same honey brown eyes, same messy bun, but even her silence felt sharper these days. Weaponized. Like she was daring me to ask one more question so she could explode and justify her distance. At first, I blamed myself. Work had been crazy. I was chasing a promotion, and maybe I'd lost sight of balance for a while. But I never stopped trying. I made dinner most nights. I picked up her favorite wine on Fridays. I still ran errands for her mom when she was too tired or too busy, even though I hadn't been thanked in over a year. The shift was subtle. She stopped sitting next to me on the couch. She stopped asking me how my day was. And when I asked how hers was, I got the same answer every time. Fine. I could have lived with fine if it meant she still cared. But fine became code for go away. And eventually, I started to. One evening, about 2 weeks before everything truly collapsed, I came home to find her deep in a phone call. She didn't pause when I walked in, didn't even give me the courtesy glance. I heard her laugh, high-pitched and flirtatious, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. She lowered her voice, back turned, her posture casual but closed off. When I asked who it was later, she waved it off with a clipped, "Just Emily from work." I didn't believe her, but I didn't press it, because somewhere deep down, I already knew the answer. Then came the Tuesday. It was nothing special, cloudy sky, leftovers on the stove. I had gotten off work a little early, beat the traffic home, and thought maybe we could sit down, share a moment. I had the bills spread out across the counter, mortgage, utilities, credit card, subscriptions, and asked her if she could handle the water bill this month. Just that one. She looked at me like I had slapped her. "Why are you always assigning me things?" she snapped. "Assigning?" I said, genuinely confused. "I thought we were. Look, I just figured we could split them this month." She pushed her chair back, arms crossed, jaw tight. "You know what? I'm not your marionette." I blinked. "What?" I said, "I'm not your marionette. I'm not some puppet you get to manage. I need my own life." She stared at me, defiant, waiting for a reaction, like she'd rehearsed the line, like it was something she'd heard somewhere, and finally worked up the nerve to say, "I didn't realize asking you to pay a water bill made me a puppet master," I replied deadpan. She scoffed and turned away. "You don't get it. You never get it. You want control over everything, every little thing. I can't breathe in this house without feeling like I have to explain myself." I should have argued, should have defended myself, told her I wasn't trying to control her, that I was just asking for help, that maybe if she looked up from her phone long enough, she'd realize I'd been drowning too. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Okay." She looked confused. "Okay. You want space. You want your own life. All right. You've got it." She stared at me for a second, lips slightly parted, like she didn't expect agreement. Like she expected me to grovel. She always did. "I'm serious," she said, testing me. "I'm not doing this anymore. I need to figure out who I am outside of you." "Then do that." I picked up the bills, folded them neatly, and slid them back into the drawer. I rinsed my glass, put it in the dishwasher, and walked past her like she wasn't even there. My heart wasn't pounding. I wasn't angry. I was tired. Tired of being the one who tried. For years, I'd been holding the net beneath her, paying the bills, handling the repairs, scheduling the appointments, supporting her through every meltdown, every new obsession, every personal crisis. And now I was the problem because I asked for some participation? She wanted to know what life looked like without my presence at the wheel? She was about to find out. Not through bitterness. I just stopped catching the plates. Let her watch them fall for once. It's incredible how fast silence can become deafening. At first, she loved it. the space I gave her. She woke up late, took long showers that emptied the water heater, stayed out on weeknights. Her phone always seemed glued to her hand, the screen lighting up her face with a faint glow long past midnight. If she noticed I wasn't asking questions anymore, she didn't show it. I didn't ask who she was texting. Didn't ask why she suddenly needed new clothes or who the Friday dinner, with friends, really included. She thought my quiet meant surrender. But it wasn't surrender. It was withdrawal. I stopped reminding her about the bills. I stopped picking up her dry cleaning. When her car made that weird squeaking sound in the morning, I didn't offer to take it in. I heard it. I just let it squeak. Freedom, after all, comes with responsibilities. The first crack appeared about 10 days in. She'd left early one morning without saying a word, and when she came home around 9 p.m., she looked irritated, windblown, and tired. The car stalled, she muttered as she dropped her purse. Battery or something. Oh, I said from the couch, not even looking up from my book. That sucks. She waited for me to offer something. A solution. A ride. Advice. But I just turned the page. That's what confused her the most. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't pouting. I was just uninvolved. And it unsettled her in a way I don't think she expected. See, detachment is quieter than anger, but it echoes louder in a relationship. It became routine. She'd try to pick little fights, push buttons that used to trigger some reaction. I wouldn't bite. I'd let her win arguments I wasn't even in. I'd cook enough for one, clean my half of the mess, and stay in my lane. About 2 weeks into her freedom, I came home to find a pile of shopping bags on the dining table, designer logos, half-open boxes, receipts curled at the edge. She'd been stress spending, probably thinking it would bring some control back into her hands. Her financial freedom, after all, had always been backed by my labor. She never really noticed because I never made her feel the weight of it. I didn't say a word. Just walked to the fridge, poured myself a glass of water, and glanced casually at the unopened mail stacked beside her shiny new handbags. She beat me to the topic that night, circling around it with passive-aggressive flair. You know, she started, scrolling her phone at the kitchen counter. I thought when you said I had space, it meant we'd at least still talk. Communicate. I raised an eyebrow. You said you needed your own life. I'm just honoring that. I didn't mean we'd become strangers. I nodded. Then maybe next time, choose your metaphors more carefully. She didn't respond. But she didn't argue, either. Over the next few days, I watched her juggle. The Wi-Fi bill went unpaid. She forgot to refill the gas in her car and had to call roadside assistance. She missed a dentist appointment she'd scheduled 6 months ago. Little things, maybe, but things I'd always taken care of in the background without fanfare. Now those quiet tasks had become loud inconveniences in her world. And still, she didn't ask for help. Instead, she started leaning on someone else. A name came up, Eli. Eli was someone from her yoga studio. A friend, she said, when I overheard her talking about the concert tickets he'd offered. Another night, I walked past the bedroom and caught her giggling into her phone like a teenager. She shut the door before I could hear more. I didn't say a thing, because I didn't need to. I had seen this exact act before, only I used to be the one on the other end of the line. When you're no longer essential, people fill your absence with distractions. That's what she was doing, filling space with noise. A different voice, different attention. Something she thought she could control. But there was desperation in her laughter. A hollowness to it. She was chasing connection now because it wasn't freely given anymore. And for someone like her, someone who thrived on being the gravitational center of a relationship, that kind of emptiness is suffocating. The tipping point came on a rainy Thursday. I heard her on the phone, her voice strained, agitated. I don't understand why everything's so hard right now, she whispered to someone. It's like everything's falling apart. She came into the living room an hour later, soaked from the rain. I glanced up as she kicked her wet shoes off. I forgot my umbrella, she muttered. I'm sure Eli will remind you next time, I replied, turning back to my laptop. Her eyes flashed. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but instead, she walked off in silence. She was learning the truth about freedom, and suddenly, it didn't look so appealing anymore. She changed her wardrobe, started wearing more makeup, and walked like the world owed her something. For a while, I think she actually believed she was living some kind of personal renaissance, like she'd finally stepped into the life she was meant to live, unburdened by obligation, accountability, or me. But you can only run on image for so long before reality catches up. The unraveling started slowly, almost imperceptibly. First came the exhaustion. She'd return home later than usual, less radiant, more worn. Her stories about dinners and plans with friends got shorter. Then one night, she skipped dinner altogether and went straight to bed. The next morning, I noticed her coffee cup still full, cold on the counter. That day, I came home to find her sitting at the dining table, phone in hand, staring at the screen like it had just delivered a death sentence. Her face was blotchy, eyes red. She didn't look up when I walked in. "You okay?" I asked casually, keeping my voice even. She blinked, startled by the sound. "Fine. I poured myself a drink and walked past her. She didn't try to follow, just sat there. I knew better than to press. Later that night, I overheard part of a phone call. Her voice was shaking, not angry, not frustrated, just lost. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I thought this would feel better. I thought I'd be happy." She paused, then lowered her voice. "No, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't even care. He just lets me be." There was something in the way she said it. She wanted me to beg, to chase, to try and prove her wrong. That's the thing about some people. They don't want freedom. They want the illusion of it, with all the safety and scaffolding of being quietly taken care of. But I wasn't playing that role anymore. A few days later, she had a meltdown. It was about something stupid. She couldn't find her bank card. It was wedged under a stack of unopened bills I hadn't touched. She tore through drawers, knocked over a vase, and cursed loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I stayed seated at the kitchen table. When she finally found the card, she turned toward me, eyes blazing. "Seriously? You saw me panicking and just sat there?" I didn't even flinch. "You said you needed space. I figured you had it under control." Her face twisted, confusion, rage, maybe even a flicker of regret. "You're so passive. You used to be." "What?" I interrupted. "Helpful? Supportive? A safety net you didn't have to thank." She looked like she wanted to yell, but something stopped her. Maybe she saw the look in my eyes. Maybe she finally realized I wasn't bluffing. That night, she stayed in the guest room. The next morning, she left early. I watched from the window as she stood in the driveway, talking on the phone. Her voice was soft, but her shoulders were hunched. Defensive, unsure. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I knew the pattern. She was trying to make herself small again, to appeal to someone she once felt confident around. Probably Eli. But Eli was never going to be what she wanted. He wasn't interested in holding her life together, just glimpsing it through the filter of novelty and admiration. He liked her when she was playful and light, when she was an idea, not when she was a real woman with real needs, real stress, real cracks. She returned an hour later, quieter than I'd seen her in weeks. Didn't mention where she went. Didn't bring up the fight. Just sat on the couch and scrolled her phone without purpose. That evening, I noticed she'd started cleaning. Not all at once, but here and there. Dishes in the sink. A laundry basket emptied. A calendar updated. None of it was directed at me. It was like she was trying to re-anchor herself in something. Anything familiar. But the problem with trying to rebuild after tearing it all down is this. Some things don't go back where they used to fit. And she was starting to realize that. She approached me one night after dinner. Unusual in itself. I was doing the dishes. She stood behind me, arms crossed, silent for a beat too long. "I miss when things were easier," she said quietly. I paused. "You mean when I did everything?" She winced. "No, I mean, when we were a team." "You left the team," I said, wiping my hands dry. "And now you're realizing the solo game isn't as fun as you thought." I didn't mean for it to go like this. I know. I just needed something different. I looked at her then, not with anger. "You got it." She looked down. "Can we talk tomorrow?" "Sure." She nodded, then left the room. I stood there for a while, staring at the sink, the faucet still dripping. And I realized, for the first time in months, I didn't feel like the broken one anymore. That weight. It was hers now. Something about her felt softer the next morning. She hovered near the kitchen like she was unsure of her place in it. Her hair was pulled up in a rushed bun, no makeup, hoodie sleeves covering her hands. She didn't look like the same woman who'd strutted around the house 2 weeks ago talking about her own life. "You said we could talk," she said finally, standing awkwardly by the table. "I remember," I replied, flipping the last page of the paper before folding it in half. She sat down slowly, tapping her fingers on the wood. "I've been thinking about us, about everything. I don't know if I made the right choice. About the distance, about how I went about things." "You didn't go about it," I said calmly. You threw a grenade and walked away from the debris. She looked down, then nodded. Yeah, I guess I did. I watched her for a moment. Something about her demeanor struck me as performative, like she was trying to land a speech she hadn't fully rehearsed. So I let her talk. And talk. About her confusion, her loneliness, how the freedom didn't feel like freedom after all. She danced carefully around certain phrases, and I noticed how she avoided specific names. One name in particular. Eventually, I asked her the question that had been sitting between us. Where does Eli fit into all this? She froze. Her eyes lifted slightly, a sliver of panic betraying the calm exterior. We're not really talking anymore. Why's that? She hesitated. Things just got complicated. 2 days before, a friend of mine, Darren, someone from my old gym, ran into Eli at a downtown bar. I hadn't seen Darren in months, but he'd recognized Eli from photos my wife used to post on social media. Apparently, Eli wasn't as private as he thought. He'd been at the bar loudly talking to his buddy about dodging a bullet with some clingy woman from yoga who couldn't handle being ghosted. Darren said he wasn't sure if he should tell me, but I told him I appreciated it. And yes, it fit the timeline perfectly. Eli wasn't a man. He was a mirror. A shiny surface she used to feel desirable again. Until the crack showed, and he flinched. It happens. It always happens. I saw your phone last week, I said, casually, though I hadn't. Saw the messages. Her mouth opened slightly. You, what? Doesn't matter. I didn't look long. I didn't. It wasn't like that, she stammered. You don't owe me an explanation, I said. We're free. Remember? She looked like she wanted to cry. Because indifference, once it sets in, feels colder than rage ever could. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. You didn't hurt me, I said, finishing my coffee. You hurt yourself. She sat in silence. Her walls had crumbled, but there was no catharsis. Just the slow realization that the life she thought she was running toward didn't exist. No one was waiting to catch her. Eli was gone. Her support system, me, was no longer absorbing the weight of her world. She was finally alone in the life she asked for. Later that evening, she came out of the bedroom with a cardboard box. I think I'm going to stay with my sister for a while. I opened the front door. As she stepped out, she paused and turned. Do you still love me? I met her eyes and gave her the most honest answer I could. I used to. And then I closed the door. It's been 3 months since she left. 3 months since the silence stopped feeling heavy and started feeling like peace. The house is quieter now, but not in that cold, sterile way it used to be when she'd sulk in one room while I did everything in another. This silence is different. It's chosen. It's mine. The mail still comes late. Dishes still pile up some days when I forget I'm not a machine. But the difference now is that when I do the work, I know exactly who I'm doing it for. I didn't follow up after she walked out that evening. I didn't ask her to stay. Didn't check in to see how things were going with her sister. And, aside from a single message confirming she'd picked up her last few things from the porch, we haven't spoken. What surprised me most wasn't how easily I adapted to life without her. It was how much weight I'd been carrying that I hadn't even noticed. I sleep better now. I eat what I want. I started running again. I even signed up for a weekend photography course, something I'd put off for years because it didn't fit our schedule. Turns out, our schedule was just a euphemism for her schedule. A few weeks ago, I bumped into one of her friends at the grocery store. Jen. She used to come over for wine nights, always full of polite smiles and side eyes. She looked surprised to see me. You look good, she said after a long pause. I nodded. Thanks. I feel good. She hesitated before adding, she's not doing so great. I didn't ask for details. I just shrugged. Hope she figures it out. She made her choices. I honored them. I held up a mirror and stepped out of the frame. Some lessons you only learn in the dark. She thought freedom meant detaching from everything that felt familiar or hard or complicated. But real freedom? It's not the absence of structure. It's the responsibility to build your own. And if you're not willing to carry that load, then all you're doing is trading one kind of confinement for another. I'd been her anchor, but she wanted something else. Something unanchored, undefined. So I let her have it. And the moment she realized what life looks like without support, without stability, consistency, love she didn't have to earn, was the moment she realized she never wanted freedom. She just didn't want to feel ordinary. But here's the truth. Love isn't about keeping someone from flying. It's about giving them wings and the wisdom to understand what happens when you burn through them trying to chase the sun. I don't hate her. She was lost. Still might be. That's the ending she never expected. Not fireworks. Just a man, quietly rebuilding, finally breathing in a life not designed around someone else's confusion. And for once, that's more than enough.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.